Hello, my name is Greg, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of installing and configuring GNS3. In this video, we're going to install and configure GNS3 version 1.5.x. I say X because basically the installation from 1.5.0 to 1.5.2, which we're about to install, nothing's changed as far as how it gets installed or uh, how it gets configured, pretty much. So it's basically some modifications or enhancements that or bug fixes that they did for all those upgrades. So, anyways, without further ado, we're going to get started here in a minute. But before we do, I wanted to show you this folder structure that I create on my C root of my computer. Basically, um, I created this to mimic the GNS3 folders that GNS3 normally installs. And you could do it one of two ways. Here you can do it by default, which is you don't have to create this structure, or you can create this structure. The reason I did is because it's easier to find everything at the root level, where it's one folder right under C, versus uh, digging through your user profile, which is where it's kept. So rather than to leave it in the user profile, I like keeping it out here. The other reason I do that is because if the profile gets corrupted or you accidentally delete it, um, you can lose all your work. So at least it's in a different place than GNS3 normally puts it, it's in my opinion a little bit safer, just because of Windows, not so much because of GNS3. Um, Today we're going to be installing a few different programs. Basically, uh, we're going to need to get this GNS3 VM, which is a VM that runs under VMWare Workstation. If you watched my previous videos, we used VirtualBox. VirtualBox doesn't work as well as VMware now and the newer GNS3. In fact, one enhancement I like is that you don't have to upload your images into a browser. Now you could do it directly from GNS3 right to the VMware VM. So that's one enhancement. The other thing we're going to be installing is this GNS3 all-in-one. Um, that's the all-in-one distribution for GNS3. It includes Wireshark, but the Wireshark that comes with it is version 2.03. The latest version right now is 2.2.1 as of this video. So I would recommend stopping the video, download Wireshark, and also Google this MobaXterm. The MobaXterm is a very good replacement for um, Super Putty. Super Putty has issues within this version of GNS3, and as far as I know, all the way back to 1.4.x, at some point, Super Putty stopped working with GNS3. I put in a bug on it, but I found out there was other people who put other bugs in on the same thing. So it looks like it's been out for a while, or a known issue, I should say. MobaXterm you can pay for. It's an annual cost, but they also have a free version which works with GNS3, and I've got to work with up to 29 switches and routers. Um, with no hiccups, it worked flawless. Um, so we're going to get that set up as well. So don't set this one up, but if you want to go ahead and download the Wireshark, that is, if you Google Wireshark, it'll take you to this web page. And like I said, the latest is 2.2.1 if you want to download it. Also download the VMware Workstation Player, unless you have Workstation Pro. Pro is better, but it costs money. So if you haven't paid for it, Player's the next best thing. I think the difference is Pro allows for multiple tabs of VMs versus a single VM per window. Um, and the other website that you need to go to is either GNS3's website at gns3.com, log in, or click here on free download to download the executable and the the GNS3 VM. Um, or you can Google this GitHub address by Googling. All you got to do is Google GNS3, and I think it's within the first few occurrences of finding it, you'll see this listed. Go to that page and scroll down to the latest release. Right now, like I said, it's 1.5.2. And then, like I said, you want the all-in-one, and you also want this VMware Workstation 1.5.2. If you do have ESXi, you can use that too, but I'm not going to show you how to install that one, nor VirtualBox. In this video, we're just doing the workstation. So there are other people out there that may have videos on showing how to install those too, but I don't think it'll be that difficult. But I did find, at least back in 1.4.x, that VirtualBox became buggy to work with GNS3. It worked fine in 1.3.x, but once it got to 1.4.x, it had issues. So, and they even recommend using VMware Workstation. So with that, we'll get started. Like I said, these folders, with the exception of documentation and progs, are all GNS3 related folders. I keep my documentation in there for GNS3 or networking, and I also have some progs that are network related that I keep in there. For iOS's, I keep in here under images. So for iOS, or Dynamips iOS's, I should say, for routers, I keep those in here. Really, the only relevant one is this 7200 series, only because the latest exams require that you know the 15.x command set. The 12.4 or 12.3 has a lot of those commands in it, but there may be changes in the 15.x that you may not be used to if you're not familiar with it. So it's probably better to familiarize yourself with the commands that are going to be on the exam. So I would recommend using this, or if you have them, the IOU, these IOU images, which is iOS on Unix. There's a layer 2 switch and a layer 3 router that comes with it. That's primarily what you need this VM for. But now Dynamips is included inside the VM, so they're pretty much putting everything into this VM, which is better because Linux has a better way of handling hyper-threading and CPU utilization, so it's much cleaner and seems to work better than native Windows. So, and then the other thing I have in here is the IOURC license file. Without this, you can't run the IOU images. It will give you an error. So let's go back up to the main one and we'll go ahead and get started. The first thing what I would do is go ahead and import your this VM. So because you need that when GNS3 first starts. So let's go ahead and open a virtual machine, and there it is. So double click on that. This is all default, so go ahead and hit import and let that go. This can take anywhere from a minute to 5 minutes depending on the speed of your machine. So if you need to pause the video, by all means do so. Again, if you haven't installed VMware Workstation, pause the video and go ahead and install it so you can do these steps, as well as Wireshark. So this is almost done. It's pretty straightforward. What I would recommend doing also is the first time you import it, go ahead and play it and make sure it comes up all the way. The reason I say that, there was one time I went to install GNS3 and it actually got a file ownership error that it wouldn't let me get past, and I eventually you uninstall GNS3 or make a few tweaks and bam, it comes up. But it's just best to go ahead and start this. Once you get to this screen, you're good to go. So we'll just minimize that. Now, one thing that you will notice that in the newer GNS3, I believe 1.5x, it might have started in 1.4x, allows you to have the VM open prior to starting GNS3. Older versions likes to start it from GNS3, and I'll show you where that's at. So we got that installed, so let's go back up and install the all-in-one. So go ahead, next, I agree, next. And then, like I said, since we installed the newer Wireshark, we'll uninstall, or we'll uncheck the WinPCAP and Wireshark since that already got installed. If you haven't already installed the SolarWinds response time viewer, like this is your first time installing GNS3, you can leave this checked. If you uninstalled an older version of GNS3 and still have the SolarWinds response time viewer, I don't think it got changed, or at least I don't think it got updated. So you can uncheck this. I already have it uninstalled, or installed I should say. So I'll go and hit next. This is all the same, and there it goes. That's pretty fast. Okay, so we're going to hit next. Now, if you haven't installed the SolarWinds standard toolset, right now they have been for quite a while now given a free license for this. It's a $200 value. If you don't already have it, I recommend hitting yes and clicking next, and that'll take you to their website where you could sign up for it. If you already have it installed, just hit no and say next. I already have it, so let's go ahead and start GNS3. Okay. So the first time you start it, as in previous versions, it brings up this thank you website. So we'll go and minimize the browser, and it also brings up this setup wizard. Even though we've already installed the GNS3 VM, the first thing I want to do is cancel this and go into Edit Preferences and change these paths to my C drive path that I mentioned. So that is under C, GNS3. This is for projects. So we'll go and hit select folder. And we'll go ahead and hit C, GNS3. This is images. Select that and do the same for symbols. C, GNS3, symbols. So you have to repoint the path, but it's not a big deal. But like I said, it makes it easier since it's out in the root. So this is for configs. Alright, so we got all those. The other thing I like to change is this style of screen is kind of bright, and if you work at night, the charcoal seems to be better on your eyes. I'll show you here in a second. As you can see, the whites are actually a light gray, and to me this is easier to read at night. But you can choose your style preferences in here. For console, I right now it's set to PuTTY for Telnet. I'm going to show you that error that we get when you select Super PuTTY. So you go ahead and hit OK to that, and don't do anything in there. The only thing I do in here is check that. I don't set any of these. We'll go and hit apply and OK. And then basically right now we're ready to close out a GNS3, reopen it, so that we get that wizard pop up again. And now we're going to set local GNS3 VM. Local server is just a loopback address, which is 127.0.0.1. So basically, you want to, like I said, set it to this so that way everything gets installed into the VM. So we'll go ahead and hit next, and then as you see, it's recommended to do the VMware. So we're going to check that. If you don't get this VM3 or GNS3 VM, you may have to reinstall GNS3 and possibly the VM. Or you may have to play around with it just to get this to show. Sometimes it's the GNS3.ini file gets put in a location that isn't, especially if you're on a work or a domain asset, it may put it in the admins folder. So you kind of have to do some tweaking to get it to work, and I could show you that in a second. So let's go ahead and hit next. But in most cases, uninstalling and reinstalling will get that to come up. So the only thing there's 6 things that you can install from here. You can add an iOS router for Dynamips. You can add an IOU router or switch. You can add a QEMU, ASA, or VirtualBox machine, or VMware virtual machine. Like if you want to pull in a PC, or like say Linux or something like that, you can. And also now they have this Docker container, which I haven't really played with, but we're going to go ahead and install the top 2, which is iOS and IOU. So I hit finish. So the first one it starts with is the Dynamips routers. So we'll go and hit next, and we'll browse. So here's our Dynamips images. So like I said, the only one I'm going to install is a 7200 because that's the only relevant one. You can do the others, but but I don't know if I mentioned it, but the 1700 and the 2600 routers are no longer recommended by GNS3, and I guess they're not supported anymore. So we'll go ahead and hit next to that. I don't know if you saw it, but it uploaded it into the VM. So the image is now in the VM. Okay, this is pretty much all default for the 7200, mainly because you can't select a different chassis or platform. It's you're installing the 7200 platforms. So basically that's all default. Next, 512 megabytes is the default RAM for this particular IO or image. If you have a different image than this, you may want to go ahead and click here, and it'll take you to Cisco's website, and you copy in your full image name. I think you have to change it from .image to .bin, and it will show you what the correct RAM is for that iOS. Once you have that, you can come back to this and plug it in and click next. And here we set up our network adapters. I usually change this to 2FE for too fast Ethernet. Plus I give it 2 gig E and 4 serial. And then this is the idle PC. If you haven't used this before, it basically finds the best value of your cores that this particular router runs on. It checks to see which one utilizes the least amount of processor utilization, and then assigns a value to it. So let's go ahead and run that. You get this little please wait, it's computing. If you don't get that, that's also an indicator that maybe GNS3 didn't get installed correctly, and I recommend uninstalling and rewatching the video to get back to this point. Takes about 30 to 60 seconds depending on the speed of your computer, and then eventually it'll pop up with a value. There we go. So this is the value for my PC. Yours will be different. Every PC gets a different value. So it's just a hex value that it chooses for the processor. So we'll go ahead and hit OK and hit finish. And now that Dynamips router is installed. So let's go ahead and install the next one, which is IOU. We'll do the layer 2 first. Browse to the IOU images. Selected layer 2. Now it's uploading just like it did for the Dynamips, and we'll give it a name. So this is going to be IOU underscore switch. And there it is. So now let's do the same for router. And because we never installed this image into the VM yet for the layer 2, we have to click new image. If you uninstalled GNS3 after uploading this to your image, you could use existing image, and then it will be in the drop down menu in here. But since this is our first time, we'll go ahead and hit new image, L3. Let's browse, pull into the L3 image into the VM. There it goes. And we'll give it a name, IOU underscore router. Click finish and apply. And the only thing is, like I said, with the license file, you have to click on this iOS on Unix, and you have to browse to where that license file is. And in this case, it's back in that C GNS3. As you can see now, it's starting to get clear why it's easier to have it here versus digging down a few more levels of folders. And then once that's in there, now we can use our router, our IOU router and switch. I did promise that I was going to show you. What was I going to show you? I think that was it. No, I think, yeah, that was it. I said I was going to show you something. If I didn't, please write me down below, and I'll respond to your comment. If because I said I was going to show you something in a minute, and I believe I just did, but if not, let me know. Okay, so now we have the 7200 series Dynamips router. We'll go and drag that onto there, and the way you know that it's working is if that little red S goes away. You'll see it here when I drop this. Well, maybe not. Okay. I think it's the first one. If you don't if you get a little red box here, that means that it didn't take the configuration of the router. By getting these red ones here also is another indicator. So let's go ahead and wire this up. I would go ahead and do serial to serial for these routers. If you're not familiar with GNS3, you don't need to worry about clock rate for your serial connections. That's all done automatically. So we got our serial and our 2 Ethernet between the three. So now we can go and bring it up. So as you can see, they're up right now because they're green. You can also see, according to the links, that they're up. Right now our VM utilization is at 100, but this will drop down here in a second after they're fully booted. So wait a second. There it goes. It's starting to drop down. There we go, 6%. It just takes a lot of processing power to boot up. So basically, these are running. So I did promise you I was going to show you the issue with, that's what I think I was going to show you. I was going to show you the issue with Super Putty. So this is the error it gets. Super Putty has stopped working, and then it just goes away. In older versions, it might have opened but not included all the devices to where you had to double click on each one that wasn't in there, and then it would add a tab to it. Now it just doesn't work. So the only other good alternative that I found that doesn't cost a lot of money up front, that gives you tabbed versus a bunch of windows, because you can set this up. Let me show you that. You can set this up to go to regular putty, but the minute you do that and go and run this, you get 3 windows. So most people, I mean, for 3 that's not a big deal, but when you got a big topology with 25 or more devices, it gets to be overwhelming on your screen to be able to keep up with which one's which. So the best thing I found, like I said, was this MobaXterm, and like I said, if you Google that, it'll bring you to this website, and just download it. Here's the website right here, MobaXterm, mobatech.net. So if you go there and click next, I accept, next, install, it will install the MobaX. I'm going to hit it, finish, and it should put an icon here in a second, I believe. Oh, I put it up here. So anyways, So let's go and open it, because there is a setting that you got to set in order for it to show tabbed. So here's the server window, and then this is, so there's two windows you get. One with the tabs for all your devices, and one that's a server window that serves all those tabs. So really the only thing that you need to do is come in here, and because I already installed this before it remembered my previous setting, is set it normally comes up with this multi-window mode, and then you have a bunch of windows just like PuTTY, and it's like, why would you want that? It's the same thing as PuTTY. So you want to set this windowed mode with DWM, and if you set that, I'll show you. Let it restart. If it restarts, there it goes. So there's the server, and here's our main page. So basically what you got to do from there is go back into edit preferences for GNS3, go to console, go to edit for the telnet, and change this to MobaXterm, and hit OK, apply, and OK. And now when you click this, it adds these tabs. Now the only thing I dislike about this MobaXterm is that for IOU it gives this home/MobaXterm versus the router name, which it shows down here, because even though these also have a router name, for some reason IOU, like IOU1 and IOU2, and I'm not sure if it's, I think you have to do a write mem. And once you do that, okay, and then close out of these. You want to have at least one left open, and then once you do that, rerun it, and you'll see. No, call me a liar. Yeah, it really doesn't like the name of this IOU for adding it to the tab like it does for R1. For some reason, Dynamips, it works. It pushes that up to the tab, but for IOU it doesn't. If somebody figures that out, if you could please let me know. Like I said, I just started using MobaXterm, but at least it does give you these tabs. I will give it that. And I did have, and let me see if I have that. I did create this this topology, which it runs beautifully with the MobaXterm and with GNS3, and it does give you a tab for each one, but unfortunately it doesn't tell you what router. You have to go into it and hit enter in order for you to know which one is which. So you can rename it by right clicking and rename tab, but I don't know if there's a way of like saving like your tab set for each project. I've seen people do that with other programs. I don't know if this will do it, but if, like I said, if somebody figures out a better way of doing this to where IOU shows up on these tabs, please let me know. But anyways, I thought, this is a cool program. So and it actually has a lot more features than Super Putty had. If you just look at these, I mean, you got tools, you even got games, you got sessions. I mean, it's got a lot, and especially being it works fine for big topologies for free. This is probably my top choice. Because those other ones are $80 to $100 to buy. So, I mean, if you want to, and that's a year. So, if you want to pay $80 to $100 a year, by all means, go for it. Or if your company will be nice enough to pay for it for you, or if you own a business, you can write it off. Good for you. But for me and us students that are working on our certs, we'll use the MobaXterm. So, anyways, so hopefully this video has been helpful, and if so, please leave a thumbs up. If not, or if it has any issues, please leave a comment below. I'll be happy to try to help the best I can. If I left something out, it wasn't that I didn't feel a need to be covered. I might have not known how to do it, or I may have wanted to do it in a future video. So anyways, feel free to comment or give a thumbs up or thumbs down. Take care. Have a good night. Bye.